with Yogendra Yadav first. Yogendra ji, I have multiple comments of Rahul Gandhi's from different years in the past. In 2009, on the 7th of October, the All India Congress Committee General Secretary Rahul Gandhi declared he didn't believe in the caste system at all and felt that the only difference between the rich and the poor is one of opportunity. In an interview in September 2016, when he was asked, do you endorse the Brahmin narrative of the UP campaign, he says, I don't believe in caste, nor endorse any of that. UP needs to get out of this morass. The only way to do this is to become a party that represents equally. My view is that the Congress is a party for all. He says, I don't believe in the caste system. Dalit is your frame. You know, from there he cuts to, aapki jaat kya hai, aapke malik ki jaat kya hai, journalist ki jaat kya hai. Now, is this just political opportunism? Or has Rahul Gandhi become a genuine votary of a caste census? How do you see this change from the time he starts out where he's opposed to the idea of caste, is Dalit is not my frame, I don't believe in the caste system, it's only about opportunity, which is in some ways what Prime Minister Modi is saying as well, to now demanding that there be a caste census. Yogendra Yadav.
Rahul, I'm here to discuss policy, not persons. When your people approached me this morning, they said we are debating caste census. So I'll focus on caste census. Incidentally, now that you have given the entire history of what Rahul Gandhi said, I'm sure you would have also given the history of what BJP has said. You would, I'm sure, have said that Mr. Rajnath Singh in 2018 had actually promised on the floor of the House to enumerate the OBCs, that in 2010, the entire parliament, including the BJP, had passed a consensus position, and BJP had given a written letter to Mr. Manmohan Singh to support caste census. I'm sure you would have played all that, but I'm not here to discuss any one person's changing stance. I'm simply reminding you there is absolutely no contradiction between not believing in caste and wanting to have caste census. That incidentally is my own position as well. My wife and I have not given our children caste names because we don't believe in it. And because I do not believe in caste, because I want to eliminate caste, because I believe in annihilation of caste, therefore, as a modern, sensible person, I believe in caste census. I find it absolutely astonishing, Rahul, that we debate, in this age and time, we debate something as elementary as caste census. Remember, caste census is nothing big. It's only adding one column. Hear me carefully. It's only adding one column to the questionnaire of census, which will be carried all over the country. Zero cost, zero additional effort involved in that. I'm surprised that we debate it in a situation where caste actually, this small exercise of adding a small column would give us not merely the number of castes and communities, which is a very small information. It will give us social, economic, and educational profile of each social group in this country at each level, national, state, district, and even village. Incidentally, this is exactly the kind of evidence that the courts, the judiciary, has been demanding all these years. Courts have been saying, do not take any affirmative action policy without producing evidence. And I'm absolutely astonished that people oppose collection of evidence. This is like saying, well, let's not have an X-ray. How can you debate it? If you have had a fall, if there is a problem, you want to have an X-ray. You can later on debate whether it needs a plaster or it needs a surgery. How can you debate an X-ray? Which is what's happening in our country. People like us, and I want to appeal to every one of your viewers who may be opposed to caste reservation. I would invite them. In fact, if you are honest about your opposition, you should be demanding a caste census, because people who say, look, caste has disappeared, ab caste ka wo mamla nahi raha, well, let's get a census, we'll get to know it. Those who say some communities have captured SC, ST, OBC reservation, they should not be allowed reservation benefits. Well, then let's have caste census, we'll get that information whether some people have captured or not. There are those who say that some communities should be eliminated, thrown out of the list of SC, ST, OBC because they are already so privileged. Well, then let's have caste census because we'll get to know it. I'm absolutely astonished that instead of arguing about what exactly is the nature of discrimination or disadvantage, whether it has improved, reduced, what kind of a relationship it has with everything else, instead of doing that, we all oppose the very collection of evidence. And that makes me suspect. If someone says, Rahul, you may have had fall yesterday, but yaar, X-ray mat karwa lena. You would say, yaar, ek baar
No, but if it's all that simple, Yogendra ji, if it's so simple,
wonder whether he's your friend or an enemy.
The parties which are currently in opposition, why don't they begin by taking the lead? For example, in Karnataka, in 2014, in Siddaramaia's first term as CM, a caste census was commissioned. The report was submitted by the Karnataka State Commission for Backward Caste. It hasn't been accepted by the Congress government because there is a fear that the Lingayats and the Vokaligas will be at odds with each other if their numbers are made public. You know, surely a leader like Rahul Gandhi, and you're talking about the philosophy, then surely the opposition should take the first step and say, okay, here's a caste census that's already been done. Let's make it let's put it in the public domain and let the impact unfold. We will show the way. Isn't that hypocritical that you say what you do in parliament, but where you have a caste census, you don't accept it and make it public and then act on it?
Rahul, I'm sure there would be people on the panel who are capable of defending the Congress party and Rahul Gandhi. That's not my brief here. And I have said, I'm slightly surprised that you see only one side of the hypocrisy and you've not quite managed to see the other side of hypocrisy. In any case, that's not my business to correct the biases of your show. I would only say, as someone who believes that caste census is an elementary step towards addressing caste inequalities, in whichever nuanced form they exist, or if they have disappeared, I would say yes, Karnataka government should make it public. I would say yes, all other governments should make it public. I would say yes, it should happen at the national level. Where is the inconsistency in what I am saying?
But you would have read what your friend, somebody who's also an academic, Pratap Bhanu Mehta, wrote, where he's questioning how invoking caste becomes a substitute for serious thinking and will not serve the cause of social justice or healthy institutions. People can argue that this is just an attempt, political opportunism to try and split BJP's Kamandal, which is why there is this supposed change of heart, because if this is genuine, it would have been the case all the while. Now, because you see the BJP attempting to try and unite all Hindu communities along the idea of Mandir, along the idea of Mandal, the way to split them is to invoke everyone's caste identity. Yogendra Yadav.
I read Pratap Mehta very carefully. In fact, you would have noticed a slight change in his tone in the yesterday's paper, in the article that's been published this morning. Incidentally, Rahul, since we are discussing caste census, there is not one word in that article against caste census. So I'll keep focusing on the real issue. I'll not get sidetracked. Pratap Mehta's problem is the way in which Rahul Gandhi articulated it with the example of Halwa. I incidentally think it was a brilliant invocation by Rahul Gandhi, but that apart, that's not what we are debating. Show me one line in that article about caste census. I may have a difference with him, but he's a nuanced thinker. He actually begins by pointing out, I really want people like you to read the first 3 paragraphs of that article. I'm sure you would have read that carefully. The real question is not hypocrisy, Rahul. And opportunism. Everything that happens in the political world is because some political players see an opportunity for them to advance their political base. This is true of Labharthi. This is true of giving ration to people. This is true of vaccination. This is true of everything in the world. So welcome to the world of politics. I'm not saying any one person is opportunist, but if you were to say that any party which seeks political opportunities in what it does, then you would have opposed Nitish Kumar giving cycles to girls, something that I really celebrated. You would have opposed, I'm sure you would have opposed Rahul, you would have opposed Mr. Narendra Modi offering 10 kgs of ration free. I'm sure I forgot to watch your show, but I'm sure as a consistent human being, you would have opposed it. You would have said this is opportunism, he's trying to get votes. Which world do we live in, Rahul?
No, but you haven't answered my question. Isn't this the reality, that this is a political attempt by the opposition to try and split BJP's Mandal politics, that you make people more aware of their caste identity and therefore shift the focus away from Mandal? Since you quoted Pratap Bhanu Mehta, I'll tell you what he says: the dismantling of caste will not take place by its cynical uses. The cheap use of identity is often a symptom of intellectual bankruptcy and even lack of honesty. But let's leave that aside. and focus on the political opportunism, because then ultimately it comes to whether it's a question of principle or political opportunism.
For your benefit, let me repeat it, Rahul. I thought I had answered it, but let me simplify it further. I'm saying that the fact that something works to the advantage of a political party does not make that measure irrelevant or illogical or bad policy. There are many good policies. In fact, most good policies in the world are pursued because the political party in question tends to benefit from it. If someone works for schools, if someone works for greater education, better quality of education and hopes to get votes, I would say, thank you very much, please go ahead, why don't you get more votes? So to say in democratic politics, to say that someone is seeking greater support and opportunity is just stating something elementary. What is so special here, Rahul? And if we were to start discarding policies on the basis of someone wanting to seek votes, then we would have to discard all the policies. We would have to discard all the policies for farmers, for women, for Dalit, for child, for education, for health. And that's why I said, which world do you live in?
Okay, let me try and draw you to the principle, because take for example the state of Karnataka. What's the concern the Lingayats and the Vokaligas have? That their actual numbers will be known, and if they are known, there's a fear that the numbers could be lesser than what is perceived, as a result of which their political heft could potentially come down. Now that would lead to some kind of a pushback in society. These two communities could be at loggerheads, these two communities together versus the other communities could be at loggerheads. So the argument that's being made is that this will unnecessarily create imbalance and rift and stress in society, that this is a can of worms that's best left unopened.
I'm so happy you picked that example, and I'm so happy that you actually know the reason why the caste census opening is being opposed. Because those who are dominant are scared. They are scared because their real numbers would be known. That possibly the fact of their privileges may also get known. This is precisely my point, Rahul. I'm so happy that you've come to the real thing now. That in this country, those who are probably not 20% of the population, upper caste Hindus, to my mind, are about 18 to 19% of this country's population. I could be slightly wrong. But those who occupy 80% positions of everything that we see wherever formal reservations are not in place, and even when formal reservations are in place, those who occupy 60, 70% positions, they are scared. People oppose caste census because they know what the result would be, exactly like Lingayats and Vokaligas. They know the result and they are scared of the result because someone has been saying, my size is this much. And then suddenly comes the information and you realize I'm much smaller. What looks like a can of worms to those who are in opportunity, and that's the point, Rahul, what looks like a pothole to someone could be an opportunity for someone else. So what appears to be, and that my real problem is that those who are privileged in this country have enjoyed caste-based privileges for 100 years, and today are innocent and say, मुझे मेरी caste का पता नहीं, मुझे तो college में जाके पता लगा. Their privileges will be unmasked, and no one wants their privileges to be unmasked.
No, so let's take this one step further into the future.
Like
let's assume that the Karnataka government,
the best possible thing that can happen in
or
democracy.
Any government makes the caste census public. Now you have to deal with the altered reality. Some communities have greater numbers than was imagined, some have lesser. There's already a court cap on how much reservation can be given. That's already under dispute whether you can go above that cap or not. Now try and implement it in society. Now try and take privileges which are available. So basically, when you're in opposition, you can say all these things. The moment someone comes into government and has to deal then with the responsibility of implementing these measures, which is why even an opposition ruled state like Karnataka hasn't been able to implement it. So it's easy as an academic philosophically for you to say what you are. If you were in government, to try and then implement it would create the frictions which is the concern.
Have you heard of a state called Bihar? They actually have already carried out this census. They have actually made the report public. Now the separate question is, and I'm repeatedly asking you, Rahul, not to mix the test with the medicine. You can at the moment we are debating whether there should be a biopsy or not. We are not debating whether chemotherapy is a good answer or a surgery is a good response. Keep the debate apart. We just are debating whether there should be a biopsy, whether there should be a blood test, whether there should be a PET scan. That is what we are debating. And strangely enough, before you debate whether, suppose we have somebody who has unfortunately an illness in the family, and 5 family members are sitting and saying, should we go to Bombay and get a PET scan done? And someone says, if there is a PET scan, we may have to go for chemotherapy, and chemotherapy is very bad, therefore let's not get a PET scan done. What would you say? Yaar, kya baat hai? ठीक तो हो, तबीयत तो ठीक है, किस तरह के आर्गुमेंट दे रहे हो? That is what amazes me in this country, that we are debating medicine before the test. Let the test come out, maybe the test would reveal. Why don't people feel confident enough that the caste census would reveal that caste in this country has disappeared?
Okay.
Maybe caste census would reveal that every caste and community has the same proportion of poor as any other community, in which case reservations will become redundant.
Okay.
Why are we not open to it? Or is it that we know the answer and we are scared of the answers?